team is Tosi one, and the opposition team is Lignio Signore, and we are here to debate on the topic "This House prefers fair trade products over zero-distance products." And so, without any further ado, we can welcome the first speaker of the proposition team.
Okay, I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Good morning, everyone. Today, and welcome to this debate. Today, the motion is this House prefers fair trade products over zero-distance products. So, as the government team, we strongly believe that fair trade products are better than zero-distance one. So let's start by giving some key definitions to make this debate clear. When we say we prefer, we mean that we choose to buy fair trade products. Fair trade is a worldwide label based on a system of certification. It ensures a set of standards in the production and supply of products exported from developing countries to Western economies. This set of standards concerns the workers' rights, safe working conditions, ethical production processes, and fairer pay. The products which we refer are coffee, sugar, cocoa, bananas, but also other types like crafts and jewelry. Zero-distance products is a concept that denotes food produced, sold, and eaten locally, so that it traveled 0 kilometers. And we refer to agri-food products, so like fruit, vegetables, meat, wine, etc. So why are fair trade products better? We strongly believe that fair trade products are better, and we are going to demonstrate it by giving you 3 main reasons. I'm the first speaker, and my argument is that the aim of fair trade is to fight poverty and promote ethical practices. The second speaker is going to bring 2 arguments. The second argument is that fair trade empowers people by being against exploitation, and the third involves the preservation of the environment done by fair trade. And the third speaker is going to rebut what the opposition team says. So, why are fair trade products the best? Because if you buy them, you can change the world with concrete actions. In fact, when you buy fair trade products, you know that, for example, the coffee that you are sipping on your sofa, you know that the people that produce it are living a dignitous life because they've been paid a suitable wage and they work in good conditions. But how can fair trade do such good things? Well, the fair trade system takes concrete actions to fight poverty by giving a fair minimum price to the products, which gives dignity to the lives in the third world and guarantees better conditions of life to poor workers. So now let me explain better this concept. To enter this system, fair trade producers have to set a fair standard price for their products that has to be paid by the buyers, which are the intermediaries that will sell this product to Western economies. This fair price helps farmers and little producers to increase their earnings and to reduce the risk of poverty. On the other hand, non-fair trade producers are exploited and poor because they are paid a ridiculous price for their products that do not guarantee a dignitous lifestyle. Let me bring an example that regards the coffee producers. Coffee producers are exploited all over the world and are paid a little price for their products. Fair trade, on the other hand, has fixed the price for coffee that now stands at $1 for 500 grams for coffee. That, for example, in El Salvador corresponds to 4,000 of Indonesian rupiahs, which is the local currency. So this fair trade price helps little farmers and producers, like I said, for example, in El Salvador, to live a dignitous life. For example, Sylvia, a 29-year-old mother that with the fair trade price can send her little girl to school and can provide medical treatment to her old mother. So this is what distinguishes in a positive way fair trade products from zero-distance products. In fact, we live in a globalized world, and that's a fact, where wealth countries necessarily import some primary products from developing countries. For example, here in Europe, we can't produce coffee, bananas, or tea, so we have to import it. Zero-distance concept does not propose a solution to the economic problems caused by these trade practices in developing countries. Like I said in my speech, for example, poverty. This is why we have to prefer the fair trade system, because it represents the method to conduct these essential trade practices by ending poverty and exploitation, and to live in a more ethical and fair world. As evidence to support what I just said, it is important to say that the fair trade system is based on the revolutionary economic theory called triple bottom line, developed by the economist John Elkington. This new theory established that a business principal aim should not only be the highest profit possible, but also the respect of stakeholders like employees and the environment. And that's what exactly fair trade does. Now I'll give you further reason by which fair trade fights poverty. So in fact, fair trade system empowers people and enables little farmers and producers to fight multinational competition, which is a big issue because we all know that it's a fact that large companies, by exploiting workers, can sell their products at very low prices. This behavior represents an unfair condition of the market and seriously damages little businesses that conduct ethical practices. Fortunately, fair trade producers are protected by the power of this label that guarantees the increase of demand of these ethical products in wealth countries by spreading awareness among consumers about business ethical practices. These labels also encourage growers to work together and form more powerful, stronger communities that can organize themselves in cooperatives, which have greater buying power and selling opportunities. In fact, these cooperatives also can receive from fair trade the premium price. A premium is an additional sum of money on the top of the standard price given by fair trade that can be invested by farmers and growers in projects they democratically choose for their communities, like for example in hospitals, schools, or in new technologies. So, for example, in the banana growing village of Santa Maria in Colombia, there aren't many after-school activities for children, aside from hanging out in dangerous environments. Thanks to the fair trade premium, the local cooperative Cubefrio decided to invest some of these premium they earned from their banana sales into some fun and healthy alternatives for kids. For example, they established a football club, an athletic club, a big bang, and other after-school activities to provide kids safe places to learn and play. So this example, yes, please.
So, in regards to the ethical side of fair trade, you said that it completely betters the ethical with workers' rights and etc. But studies have also shown that there are in many cases there are examples of it also not working and workers still being exploited. And how would you answer to that?
Well, workers in the third world are still exploited because not all the businesses in the third world are part of the fair trade system. But if we enhance this system and if we invest money in this system and support by buying fair trade products, then the fair trade organization will just develop in the third world and more workers will have the opportunity to fight their condition of poverty. So as I was saying, the example that I just made just represents how fair trade really does fight poverty. Another reason why you should prefer fair trade products over zero-distance one is that the fair trade represents one of the best tools to actually implement the 2030 Agenda of United Nations. This agenda is a plan that outlines how we can abolish poverty and transform the world into a peaceful environment for all. Exactly how fair trade does. In fact, here are some goals of the agenda: end poverty for all people and hunger, promote economic growth and decent work for all. So now let me tell you, you want to live in a world where all the workers are exploited and where the poverty is a big issue, or in a world where you can buy products and take concrete action in this world to actually live in a peaceful and sustainable environment for all? Thank you for your attention.
Okay, I'll start in 3, 2, 1. Okay, good morning everybody. I'm Marco Mellano. I'm the first speaker of the opposition team. First of all, I would like to refute some of the statement of the other team, and I would like to start from a doubt. We have a doubt. In fact, we think that this is not a realistic plan, and we don't think it can be realized so easily and so in a so easy way as this team is saying. Then another point that I would like to refuse and that I would like to underline is the fact that the other team didn't took in account the impact on the environment of this trade, long distance trade that obviously must be taken account. In fact, I would like to finish this point, and in fact, this involves large amounts of packaging, and also the transportation involves large use of fossil fuels, and we have to consider also big production of waste.
Why did you say that fair trade is impossible to implement when it's already a reality and it's already happening?
First of all, I didn't say that it's impossible. I said that it's very hard to develop a strategy like that for trading goods. Those cases that you mentioned are just some example, but fair trade is, in your vision, is considered to become a general vision of trading. So it's not that simple. It's not that easy to realize in our view. Having said that, I would like to remember to all of you the motion that we are debating. This house prefers fair trade over zero distance products. And having remembered you the motion, I would like to define, to give you the definitions that our team, choose for this motion. We define zero distance. Zero distance is a kind of trade in which the product is both produced and sold within the same region or area. And then fair trade is a trading partnership based on dialogue, transparency and respect. Me, as the first speaker, I'm going to talk about the benefits of buying local instead of purchasing fair trade products. The second speaker is going to talk about sustainability and economics aspect, and then the third speaker is going to refute the position of the other team. Our team line is based on the fact that we prefer zero distance product because we believe in investing economically and socially in our communities while helping the environment. Then, having said that, I would like to start with my points. We believe that building connections is one of the biggest and most important part of trading, and for instance, we think that shopping local products closes the gap between the consumer and the producer. This is a very important aspect, especially for the environment, as our second speaker is going to explain you. In that way, you can get to know also the people involved in the production of the goods you're going to buy. And it also gives you the possibility to understand the process behind the scenes and become more concerned of how it's made, the product you are going to buy. So the person who buy a product is going to be informed of how it's produced, where it's produced, in which way has been produced. And so we think that is a valid advantage for the consumer.
Johan,
Yes.
don't you think that it is better to close the gap between rich and poor countries like fair trade does?
Yes, thank you for your question. Yes, of course, this is a very beautiful dream, but we think that in a more realistic way, as I was saying you before, we think that we should at first work in our local, in a more local and specific way, and then to enlarge this model also to a wider trade plan. Then we think. I would like just to go ahead. We think that also supporting local business gives you the opportunity to contribute to the development of the economical tissue of your region, and this is a crucial point because, for example, in Italy, local business is the major type of enterprise. And so it turns out that by supporting local business, you are able to support the whole economy of your country, and this can make those realities stronger and able to face a larger market that otherwise would oppress them. And so make them die. And last but not least, buying zero-distance products give you the opportunity to support traditions and local habits, which are very important for our culture, and more in general to make people able to understand it, to discover those very small realities. Then I would like just to remember that buying local is obviously cheaper, as is going to say our second speaker. Obviously is less expensive, because if we remove all the costs related to packaging and to transport, we can make the cost to diminish. And then I would like just to remind you the points that we are going to cover, and this one about the cost of benefits and the cost of zero distance against the high cost of fair trade. And having said that, I thank you all for your attention. I finished my speech.
I thank the first speaker of the opposition team, and now I'll give the floor to the second speaker of the opposition team.
Okay, I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. We are what we eat. Ludwig Feuerbach, a German philosopher. So good morning, everyone. I'm Aurora Targa, the second speaker of the proposition team. First of all, I'd like to refuse to what the other team said. Basically, they started saying that fair trade is not a realistic plan. Well, at least we are trying to change the world. We are trying to change every aspect of our world that now is giving us many wrong points. Well, we're giving valuable options to increase the ethical consumerism. Secondly, they talked about the environmental aspect, but about that I refuse in my speech, and starting from the fact that fair trade is eco-friendly in itself. Then, you talked about the cost reduction, but we must say that when we take products from the local market, there is a major possibility of suffering the effects of inflation, because the customers can't change supplier easily. Meanwhile, if we take our products from the global market, in this case with fair trade, this problem doesn't exist, because if a supplier increases the price of its product, we can just switch to another one, to another supplier with a different nation. And this is from a study from Keynes. So, after saying that, I'd like to start with my argumentations. The first one would be the fact that fair trade empowers people by being against exploitation. And my second argument would be the fact that it preserves the environment. So in consequence of this, for this reason, it must be said that fair trade certification ensures that no producers or brands exploit from child labor, helping children in developing countries to focus on their education and family rather than entering in the workforce at a young age. Can you imagine how many? Because it is estimated, according to UNICEF, that 112 million of children and youth, I repeat, 112 million children and youth work in agriculture. For this, we must say that they do not attend school, do not receive appropriate nutritional care, and have little time to play. And for that, Fairtrade America states in its gold standard published in 2018 that producers are not allowed to employ anyone under the age of 15 or under the age of 18 if this does not impact... Yeah, tell me.
So you're talking about this child exploitation, but in our zero distance model, we don't have this. This is mainly caused by international trade, which is another topic. So how would you address that?
Well, fair trade is based on international trade because fair trade is based on that. With fair trade, you empower every person that is working there, so I don't think that I understood your question. Well, going on, fair trade's approach enables farmers and workers to have more control over their lives, and fair trade's approach decide them to how invest their premium price that Julia has told you before, and this is only a solution made by fair trade. So as a leader in a global movement to make trade fairer, fair trade supports and challenges businesses and governments to connect farmers. And also it is stated in a triple bottom line that we already brought into discussion. But how does fair trade work? Well, the members of fair trade are organized in cooperatives where democratically they make decisions. Turning back to the coffee example that Julia has told you, those producers part of the fair trade cooperatives are more conscious about the value of their work and the value of their products. So let me tell you how fair trade promotes equality. People who produce in fair trade products have more control over their crops because they work in secure, safe, and suitable environments. And they should not be subjected to discrimination or prejudices. Fair trade revenue is injected into directly communities and have initiatives that target areas like housing, healthcare, and education. In fact, fair trade programs have helped to improve and enhance the quality of life in many farming communities across the world, especially in rural areas where opportunities were limited. I'll make an example. Well, Fair Trade Tea in East Africa. A tea producer has said that Fair Trade is an organization that is relevant to the needs of its members. And secondly, he said that Fair Trade has allowed me to get the knowledge, the value of my work. So remember to buy a Fair Trade tea, not a normal one or a 0 kilometer one. So remember that with fair trade, you will change the world, and you improve everyone's life, not just the local business. And here we are with my sub-argument. How does it put an end to discrimination? Fair Trade International has investigated this specific issue according to the protection policy for vulnerable children and adults. Because fair trade standards prohibit any behavior such as sexual intimidation, abuse, or exploitation. For example, Fair Trade supports the education of girls by funding schools and courses through the price that only Fair Trade has. So much so that all the workers explain the power of education. In fact, Mary, working in a greenhouse in South America, has said that everything has changed. I understand. From this comes competence. I have more opportunities and I have more freedom. It is understood, therefore, that we improve the living standards in towns and also in villages. And to conclude this argument, working conditions are better because fair trade, as I was saying, promotes safe, secure working environments. This is assured by eliminating the use of harmful chemicals and dangerous equipment. And so, in the end, could you reach the same goals buying 0 kilometer products? We don't think so. You can change the world with the fair trade ones. And here I am with my second argument. Well, the environmental aspect, as I was saying in the beginning. So protecting the planet is something on everyone's lips. It's a subject that we're discussing every day in our daily routine. So thanks to the International Fair Trade Network, the farmers receive funding to mitigate the environmental impact and to adapt to climate change. Therefore, thousands of small farmers in developing countries have access to the market, so to the purchase and sale of CO2 credits, which are the equivalent to a ton of CO2. Well, for producers, this is something new, an advantageous opportunity to receive the financial support to counter the effects of climate change in their realities. For example, to plant trees and to reduce the use of fertilizers or eliminate them, and improve soil management. And all of this is since 2013. Well, indeed, we have the access to clean water that in many parts of the world, unfortunately, is not possible. They have less opportunities. And many farmers and workers have these problems, but solution does exist with fair trade that has found them. Well, countless organizations have used the Fair Trade Award to build toilets, wells, and aqueducts to improve the local farmers, the local community, but mostly the international ethical consumerism. For this, we must say that fair trade is the only solution to improve it, to enhance and encourage, actively encourage people to buy those products that can help people in other parts of the world where they have opportunities limited. So, in the end, we can say that fair trade actively encourages farmers and growers to undertake a specific ecological-based training to help them better understand the environmental impact that they have with the agricultural practices, and to improve yields while simultaneously they're doing the bit for the planet. And this is all thanks to the standard that only fair trade has. Now, I pose you a question. Is it fair to do not participate to the change that we have in front of us thanks to fair trade? We highly think that we have to accept that fair trade is a reality because you can find fair trade products everywhere in our supermarkets. So why don't you change the world? Why don't you accept this? Thank you for the attention.
I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Good morning, everyone. My name is Nicole Pizzi, and I'm the second speaker of the opposition team. I'd like to start by refuting most of the things that have been said by the proposition team. I loved the emphasis that you put on changing the world and actually taking action, how you talked about child labor and how you're working to solve that problem. And that's exactly what I would like to start with. The first speaker said that the only exploited workers in poorer countries are not a part of the fair trade organization system. That's actually false. We have evidence starting from 2006. There is an article from Swiss Info, which is a local journal. Title of the article is Fair Trade Accused of Foul Play. The company in question is Max Evelhard. An ex-director, Paola Ghigliani, says that products certified as fair trade do not always live up to the tag due to a lack of proper controls among smaller producers. And the figures issued by the company, about 50 million, also were distributed among all the small farmers. Well, the small farmers in total were about 1 million, which means that each producer received about 50 euro per year, or about 4 euro per month. And at the time, I'd like to finish. At the time, only 54 inspectors were present, so we can't even be certain that every producer even got the money. But this is not an isolated event. In 2014, they were accused again of failing to deliver benefits to African farm workers. This article is from The Guardian, again, 2014. A research by SOAS, which is a university in London, pointed out that farmers within the same community or adjacent areas who were not affiliated with fair trade paradoxically were paid higher wages than the ones who were a part of fair trade. And the producers in Uganda and Ethiopia, which were affiliated with fair trade, producing coffee and tea, were not benefiting from the profits. I'd also like to add about this, that there are some limits to the success that can be achieved through fair trade. First of all, to join fair trade, you must qualify, and by qualify, you also have to pay a sum of money. Not everyone obviously can afford that. Second of all, by doing this, so by having within the same community people who are a part of fair trade and people who are not a part of fair trade, you are increasing the gap between a community in a poor country. On top of that, I'd also like to add that, yes?
Don't you think that fair trade enhance and encourage little growers and farmers to actually enter the system, so to not increase this gap, but to actually enhance these
It might encourage the farmers, but not everyone can actually qualify to be a part of fair trade. So then how do you solve that? Second of all, they say that not all the workers obviously are exploited, but I'd like to add that there is an administration fee that doesn't go to suppliers, because at a retail level, once the products are exported, there is a fee that is paid to the company. A percentage of this fee obviously belongs to the producers, but this actually doesn't occur. There is this another gap within the same system. So we can say that worker exploitation occurs in a white-collar way. Plus, there is no central authority in place. This means that we cannot be 100% sure that abusive labor practices don't take place. For example, again, in 2017, Fairtrade was accused again by an Italian journalist, Emanuele Bellano. They were accused of child labor practices in Africa. Having said that, I am done refuting. Yes?
Are you instead sure that not applying fair trade could help, for example, these children not being exploited?
Sorry, can you repeat?
Sorry. Like not applying fair trade, you said that fair trade fails in this kind of branch, but are you sure that, for example, not applying fair trade, the situation could be also worse than how it is?
My point was not that by not doing anything, obviously you can solve the situation. It's impossible to not take action and solve a problem, but you claim so strongly that with fair trade you solved most of these problems when it's actually not true. So that was my point. Now I'd like to begin with my arguments, which are mainly related to the environment and how zero distance actually helps the environment. I'd like to start with carbon emissions. Obviously, transporting products long distances requires attributes, let's put it that way, a larger amount of food miles to the food we consume. While with zero distance, obviously these food miles are reduced, meaning that the carbon emissions lower. Obviously, this also has an economic consequence or a benefit because obviously if the products we're consuming and buying travel less, obviously they are going to cost less money. And there's also another problem with importing, I'd like to finish, with importing food that comes from obviously other parts of the world like fair trade does. You have to maintain this food until it's ready to be sold. So you need to keep this food in certain facilities that have refrigerators. Obviously, that also causes, as a consequence, on carbon emissions. While when you buy zero distance, you have obviously the produce is fresh and it lasts up to a week. So you don't have this problem with keeping food in these facilities for a long time. And also, I'd like to bring an example of how zero distance works. There is a zero distance organization in New York City called Green Market, which is finalized to sell zero distance products. The products are produced in areas adjacent to the city and then are brought into the city to be obviously sold. I'd like to point out this is sustainable. Obviously, just like fair trade farmers have all of these ways to produce sustainably, as farmers producing zero distance also focus on that. So they focus on maintaining health of water, soil, and air quality, which we know in a city like New York is actually a huge problem, contributing again to the community. Also, energy conservation. As I mentioned previously, local food travels shorter distancing using less energy and reducing, again, food miles. Having said this, I'd like to conclude my speech, and I thank everyone for their attention.
So I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Good morning, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Zanini, and I'm here today to rebut what the opposition team just said. First of all, I want to focus on what the first speaker said about the transport. I want to bring some data. The US spent $1.64 trillion on the logistics in 2019. That's the 8.0% of the national GDP, according to the Council of Supply Chain Management Professionals. What does this mean? That also fair trade and the transport of fair trade is not just a problem for the environment, but is such an important part of the economy of a country. And we cannot leave these people in an ethical part of our speech. We cannot leave these people without an help during their work, but at the same time we cannot leave a lot of people for example logistic or transport physically employed in this type of branch of the market without a work, just because for example zero distance products look more good, or maybe there are other qualities that I'm not taking in dubs, but we cannot just take it as a little part of what a big economy, a global economy in reality is. You also want to enlarge the zero-distance production philosophy later on, but it's not always possible. If our plan is a dream, maybe the base of your is a fairy tale, because also considering that the economic impact of fair trade commerce is a global one, not a regional one that is based on traditions and on local farmers. We want to change something that is bigger and is more impactful than just act on a region and then hoping that everything will be better in the future. We want to act immediately and with a sustainable and certified model that today is also able to work all around the world. Then the other house didn't deny how it's impossible to produce some products on our soil in a sustainable way, and for sure making the commerce of this product fair for workers is better than importing everything, approving and supporting bad ethical markets. For example, if you want to eat avocados, you cannot just cultivate avocados in our country or in all countries of the world. Then you will have to import them, and importing them from bad sources or bad markets is for sure worse than importing them from fair trade markets that are safer and are good and in an ethical and in a moral way. You also said that in a zero-distance product, workers, you say, for example, children, are respected. But I want to rebut this with a concrete example.
We never said that in zero-distance children are respected because children shouldn't be working in the first place. We never said that children should be working. When Aurora said that we are protecting workers and also children not working by fair trade, you also said that this plan is not working and you bought some data. And then, you said that in zero-distance products, workers are respected. You said not children are respected, but children are not working. But I want to rebut with this using the example of caporalate. Caporalate is a phenomenon that is so common with, for example, the criminal organization that are all around the world, also in Italy. And for example, there are people that are used, because it's used, to cultivate products like tomatoes or other products that are cultivated locally and they're sold as zero-distance products. But in reality, the workers are not in a good condition or in a good work condition, as with fair trade we want to try to do. I want then to move to the second speaker. You said that for the fees that the workers has to pay in order to gain the fair trade market, nobody can afford that. But I want to say to you that the tax is actually 3 cents for each kilo of production that you want to export. So it's not a big fee or a big tax that you have to pay, and everyone can actually afford this in order to protect their workers and the safety of the workers that are actually involved in the process. Then our plan doesn't work to protect the world, you said. But I want also to ask you, how could zero-distance products actually help all of this problem that we are posing? And also because there are some activities that are not in an old world, and like moving the zero-distance production philosophy all around is not possible, as I said to you before. I also want to talk about the freshness that you said about zero-distance products and the safety of zero-distance product freshness. I wanted to use a few names and scientific names. There are two gases and two types of products that are used to freeze the food that is exported, that are Frio and Creo. These two types of gases kills microorganisms with gas, carbon dioxide and others, and can actually kill all the bad organisms or pathogen organisms that are in the product. So exporting them and preserving them in the correct way will not just help the workers by fair trade, but we also guarantee a freshness when the product will arrive to our house. So you said also that there's not control for the fair trade, but there's someone that control if zero-distance products are for real that sustainable or that safe or that health. There are, for example, pesticides that are used a lot also in zero-distance products production, and there's actually no one that will go there and check for something that is good or bad. Instead, for fair trade is an organization, so the people will probably take a check once in a few to see if everything is good or is going well. That is also that is at least more than not checking at all if a product is what is said to be. I want also to give you a few other problems that not having to face with fair trading involve. For example, land grabbing. Land grabbing is a phenomenon where the multinational take the lands where these workers work and cultivate their products, and these people are not able to work anymore and are not tutelate, so they will just be left without work and without any type of help. And fair trade also wants to help this phenomenon not to happen, because by helping these workers improving their own businesses, they will continue to have their revenue and to improve their work and their safety in their businesses. We exposed why fair trade can solve, at least try to solve, real and important global problems instead of supporting a zero-distance products economy that cannot work for economical, ethical and social facts. So what do you want to choose? Safety and a better world for the workers, or something that is not sure and is just maybe a fairy tale or a dream? Thank you.
Just 1 second. All right, perfect. All right, so I'll start in 3, 2, 1. Hello everyone, my name is Lorenzo Del Vecchio, and I am the third speaker of the opposition team. First of all, I would like to refute some of the points brought up by the proposition team, starting with the third speaker. Firstly, starting off with the end of her speech, she made assumptions. She talked about how no one checks in zero-distance farms, but yet has not shown any data to prove that. On the other hand, as our second speaker has brought up earlier, she showed concrete data showing that while fair trade might help, in a lot of cases, unlike what they stated, because they started off talking about how it's so ethical and how everything is good and dandy, she showed how in many cases, there were many cases with concrete evidence where people were exploited, or how she showed where in cases, for example, with the $50 million that she brought up earlier, the farmers were only paid $50 a year, if that. And so because of the lack of a concrete central structure. Also, she also talked about how criminals exploit workers in her discussion, which is quite off topic because, first of all, it's already illegal as is because they're criminal organizations. And second of all, it's not a zero distance problem, it's a criminal problem, so it's off topic. We're talking about zero distance versus fair trade, not on the criminal aspect of that. Yes?
Are you aware that the criminal aspect is a consequence of the zero distance product?
Yes, but the criminal aspect is still a legal aspect. It is not allowed by law, unlike zero distance trade is. So it's not a problem about zero distance, it's a problem about law, criminality. And continuing, going back to the beginning, the second speaker of the proposition team also went on a long speech about about the benefits of fair trade. But here's the problem. She, first of all, did not answer my question correctly, and I may have stated it in a confusing way, but I do not believe so. The question I asked was, how were the points that she was bringing up comparing fair trade to zero distance? Because she was really just bringing up benefits of fair trade, which we also then disproved later on with the second speaker, that were not against zero distance. She talked about a lot of exploitation, child labor, and other problems such as those. But those aren't problems with zero distance trade. Those are problems with international trade, and that's a complete other topic. So that as well is off topic, again, with the criminality one. And she did, though, say we don't think we can do it with zero distance, all these benefits. But she didn't bring up a reason. She didn't bring up any data proving that. So this shows, again, that for twice they went off topic. Again, first of all, talking about criminality, and second of all, comparing mainly fair trade, mainly to international trade and not zero distance. No, thank you. And continuing, another point that she brought up was that fair trade helps people around the world. And while that can be in some cases, because again, going back to the data we showed, it's not always that way, because in my opinion, their whole discussion was based on an unrealistic and idealistic worldview that didn't actually go into the details about fair trade, didn't actually go into the investigations and actually see that there were problems with it. For different reasons. So continuing with what I was saying, they talked about how fair trade can help people around the world. Well, in some cases it can, but what about the people here? What about the people in our country? What about the people who don't have access, who don't have the money to pay for these products? Because as we stated many times, zero distance products compared to fair trade products are cheaper because of transport and because of other reasons. And so, no thank you. And so, if we put these two one against the other, if we prefer fair trade products, how are people who don't have the money to access them, how are they going to, compared to zero distance products? If we prefer fair trade, because at the beginning they stated that it's only some products like coffee and chocolate, but they also stated that in time it could expand to other products. So how would we resolve that issue, I wonder? And continuing with my point, with my refutation, they also talked, the first speaker didn't also didn't answer my POI when I asked about fair trade. They just said they would expand it, which didn't answer my question. They also stated that they would try to abolish poverty by 2030 with, I think it's the European plan. But here's the problem with that. Again, that's an unrealistic worldview, because again, if we look into the details, we can show with concrete evidence, as my partners have shown, that fair trade is not perfect as they have brought up in the beginning. And so, continuing this, also the first speaker, during her discussion, she tried to use her discussion mainly to incite emotions in people, bringing up the story about Sylvia and the story about a Colombian city. But here's the thing, we're going into the details there. We're only talking about a few people. Sylvia is a single family. The Colombian city, it's a single city. What about the rest of the world? What about the people who are still being exploited? What about the people that could still be exploited? What about the people who wouldn't have access to these products? What about them as well? They did not take any of that into consideration. They only looked at specific cases to demonstrate an unrealistic worldview. No, thank you. And as we brought up before, not only is it unrealistic because there's problems with the fair trade because of exploitation and all of that, but as as my partners have stated, there's also another problem with the local population in regards to people who can qualify and people who can't qualify, because they also failed to address that completely. Because as the second speaker has stated, there is a cost which can actually go up to the thousands to access the fair trade mark. And the proposition team just said that they would encourage farmers to try and attempt to reach this mark. But as the second speaker pointed out, how are they going to reach this mark? You can encourage them, but it's not like you're giving them free money. The money doesn't just pop out of nowhere. So again, that argument is completely baseless. It's completely unrealistic. And so, continuing with this, there's also, going back to what I said before, there's no central body. So how, they talked about controlling, investigation. But again, going back to what I said at the beginning, they assumed that there's no investigation in zero distance, yet they didn't bring any data to show it. And they also said that there was investigation in fair trade, or at least said that fair trade was good, it was ethical. But as we brought up, the investigation actually shows that there's a lack of it. And so we actually seen in the little bit of investigation that there were examples of exploitation. And also going to the environmental problem, the third speaker talked about how they can use gases to preserve food. The topic that we brought up earlier by the second speaker, or by the first and second speaker, wasn't a problem about preservation, because it's not a problem about freshness, it's a problem about preservation in regards to refrigerators, in regards to these gases, how they're harmful to the environment. As the second speaker pointed out, keeping food in refrigerators to transport them very long distances compared to zero distance pollutes the environment, and they did not address that. They only talked about the freshness, which was completely, again, off topic because we did not bring that up. And again, she talked about the freshness of fair trade, yet also didn't disprove the freshness of zero distance, therefore just bringing up a completely baseless remark without actually even refuting an unexistent mark that we brought up. Because again, we didn't talk about freshness, we talked about environment. And with all that, with that refutation done, I would like to finish my discussion. Thank you for your time.
Now that the first part of the debate has finished, we can start the reply speech. And so I welcome the reply speaker for the position speech.
Okay, we'll start in 3, 2, 1. Okay, good morning everyone again. My name is Marco Mellano. I will lead the reply for my team. The other team choose to promote a vision of the world economically very unrealistic, and I think that all of us would like that the values promoted by the other team become reality. But we don't think that this would happen just by promoting that model. Instead, we give you a more realistic view, easier to realize, because it's closer to the reality. Because it's closer to the reality and to the context in which it is put. And that makes it more reliable, more easier to realize. And if we want to change the world quickly, we have to choose the easier way, and zero distance is the best answer in our opinion. And that and under this point we won the debate. Sustainability is another point of clash, and in this discussion we gave you a system with no large transport needed, no packaging, no waste, that promotes the health of water, of soil and air, as shown by our second speaker, that uses less energy and that uses less energy. The other team didn't really care about sustainability, and also support a model in which we should use more energy for the refrigerator and to transport those goods. But in our plan, this would not be necessary, because zero distance is exactly the opposite, and we think that we have to take in account that we live in a world that has to fight climate change, and so we have to consider it also, that aspect. And also under this point we think we want the discussion. Another point regards economics. In fact, this other point of clash was related to the cost of the goods imported by other country, where those goods are produced in a fair trade system. And we show you that the option promoted by us, the zero distance production, lowers the general cost, making it more affordable and making it an easier model to export and to change the general economic system. They also accuse us the zero distance system without giving us data to support their statement, while we always support our statement with data. And we think that also under this point we want the discussion. Thank you for your attention. I conclude my speech.
I thank the reply speaker for the opposition team, and now to finish this debate, I welcome the reply speaker for the opposition team.
I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Well, good morning again. Today we discussed about a very important topic, the choice between fair trade products or the zero distance ones. It's basically the choice between a safe, secure planet and over an egoistic economy that is not sustainable at all. Opposition team, in fact, just attacked fair trade, and then they gave us concrete arguments or examples. We asked many questions, they didn't understand clearly, the arguments weren't clear. So for this reason, I'd like to resume this debate. From the proposition side, we talked about the main 3 reasons why choose fair trade. The first one is that it is ethical, and it is evident that it is ethical and helps individuals. The second one, that it empowers people. And the third one, it preserves the environment. We're showing you examples and data that can demonstrate to you how fair trade is useful for every part of the world. From the opposition team, we talked about the economics, basically the local business, and we had a point of clash in this case with the ethical point of view of our part, because it is better humanity or the selfish local businesses. I pose you this question. Well, then they talked about the less cost for the transport, and we talked about the inflection and the fact that this, and also the environmental aspects. And we agree with the fact that with zero-distance products, we can have less cost for the transport. But this is not a way to paragon it to the fair trade that is more ethical, that has a ethical consumerism and improves everyone's life. They talked also about the environment, because we have less pollution, we have less emissions of CO2, but we tell you that fair trade is eco-friendly in itself, so why do not accept it? We've shown you the triple bottom line, the premium price, so the additional amount of money that every farmer and worker and producers can have thanks to fair trade. We've shown you how can this premium price be invested into communities, into local businesses, and how can people feel it? How can education system, healthcare, householding can feel this premium that can invest in their community? We had many difficulties to understand each other. We understood that because many questions weren't very clear, as I said. And in a nutshell, we must say that fair trade products are surely more ethical, sustainable, and helpful than yours. Zero distance products do not work. You didn't give us concrete examples to say that. We talked about the global issues, and we've shown you how fair trade products are sustainable and help all the people around the world. While zero-distance products are less important because it doesn't address to a huge scale of people. It doesn't address to a huge market. It doesn't address to all the world, just to the local business. And this is selfish. This is not the way that we have to live in this world, basically in economics and in the trade market. Well, I'd like to let you imagine two words. The one from the opposition team, where there is selfishness, where there are people who are just thinking about the local business, just thinking about the environment, well, not at all. And about our part, the proposition team, we want to change the world. We want to change everything that is not going well since years and years. We want to change the idea of the ethical consumerism that I think has been lost through the years with the globalization and all the things that have happened. We want to change the ethical consumerism, as I said. We want to change people's mind. We want to keep in mind that our planet has to be saved, and fair trade is the only solution to do that. Thank you all for the attention.